Peace and love, everybody. Peace and love. Good afternoon to you. Good day to you, wherever it is you are. Just finishing up a little bit on right? All right, y'all. You probably heard a little bit of the background that I had going on. It's a little bit of activity on Clubhouse, interacting, networking, meeting, somewhat like-minded people in, in their walk of understanding and coming to understand certain things as it deals with the diaspora of who it is we are, and from the Moorish perspective, by the way, which is what I'm tended to lean towards. Good afternoon, y'all. This is AD, otherwise known as Adele Day, here on another edition of Learning More Chronicles. This being the Thursday edition of the show. And I want to welcome you here today. And just to let you know, I actually have a topic in mind. I'm not just going to be babbling here incoherently, floating all over the stratosphere and atmosphere. By the way, speaking of that, salute to Captain Kirk. He got it on and flew up in the old phallic symbol out of Van Horn, Texas, and touched the sky. And he was really grateful about it, too. Made it down afterwards. 90-year-old man had a chance to kiss the atmosphere and break the sound barrier, whatnot. Kudos to him. I'm going to start off the show today by giving thanks to the Most High, otherwise known as Allah, who's given me the faculties and the motivation in doing this, for he is the most high. And I do envision myself, and I believe myself, as a God, not the God. All of us, each independently, are gods of our own destiny, whatnot. Do with that what you may. But I want to say thanks. And if those of you out there who might be within earshot of listening to anything that I'm doing right now, drop me a couple bucks for something to drink, because my mouth tends to get dry. I would appreciate it. I'm asking. I know it's really hard times, and I'm trying to develop something, and I'm just going naturally with it. So you see the addresses right there, Learning More Chronicles, which is hopefully the YouTube channel that you're tapped in on. You got the Cash App up there. And those of you who want to connect with me through Facebook, that is the name of the moniker of the Facebook page, Facebook at To Be Moorish. And in the middle, if you're even more advanced than I am, you feel free to tap that QR code that's going to open up my link tree to a whole bunch of other stuff. So, hey, first of all, when you come in the room, be sure to tap that like, share with somebody else that you know that might like it as well. Have them tap like, and set your notifications, because sometimes I get a wild hair and want to come on in the middle of the night and just have a discussion. By the way, at the top of the right screen there, that's like my night product, if you will, my nighttime production, called The Night Side with AD. But first and foremost, I want to give props to this product right here. 100% hemp seed oil by Moor Beauty. It's available through the embassyofthemoors.org. That is the embassyofthemoors.org. And you can tell that I'm kind of off on my production, because I was supposed to have my voiceover ready, but I failed abysmally. I don't have it ready, but it's okay. I'll play that a little later in the show. Anywho, as I do believe that, well, everyone else was thinking it, or everyone was thinking it, I just said it, right? So there's things I'll say in conversation that might ruffle the feathers, it might stimulate, it might motivate, it might otherwise be impactful. That is the hope, and that's the plan. Somewhat, you can say it's a plan. And sometimes I do actually invite guests on to the show who might want to say something in particular, address a certain point, or bring up a question, maybe even have an answer. I'm open to that, because I believe that we need to further instances of having discourse. And I don't necessarily operate in discord. I believe in discourse. So today, guess what I'm going to be having to say and talk about? Did you know that this month, October, is also Domestic Violence Awareness Month? someone that you actually care about, might care about, is likely experiencing domestic violence, whether you can see it or not. We're not talking about your neighbor next door either. I mean, we're talking about people that you might even care about. They're in your family. Maybe it's within your lineage. However, before I get into that, though, got a little bit of breaking news that's along that point. And I'm going to share my screen so you can get the whole experience right here. And plus, I'm a giver. I'm actually a giver. I like to pass out and disseminate information because information leads to knowledge, information leads to power. And I believe in empowering each other and empowering oneself. Give me a sec. Let me get that going on. Got to get this out. Got to get this in. So, rapper, personality, impresario Tyga arrested recently for felony domestic violence. Now, I don't know if those of y'all have an understanding of a difference between a domestic violence incident, and a domestic violence with injury. It could be the difference between just getting a citation to appear in court at a future date or being booked into custody or having to turn yourself in. Let me play the video for you right now. Explain the code section there. Felony domestic violence 273.5A penal code, and the bail was set at $50,000, which is not uncommon. A lot of it depends on the elements, and among the elements is the presence of injury at the moment, at the time of the response, or as is provided by a complainant. In this case, it was apparently an Instagram photo that I don't believe I've retrieved in time for this broadcast. But let me see if I can pull it up. Give me a second. And I'll see if I could get the photograph. I don't think it's been taken down, but it has been gathered as evidence in this case, I believe. Give me 1 second. But it's all over the news, and I'm not propagating or supporting anything at all. I'm just showing you the real. This is what's going on. Whether or not it's real remains to be seen, because innocence is prevalent until proven guilty, of course, right? But it's not looking good for him, and I say that because, well, of all the times, I mean, we haven't learned. We just haven't learned, and the timing, well, couldn't have happened at a worse time to have this situation happen. Because let me see if I can get the picture up here. Oh, wait a minute. There it is. Apparently what happened is the following, from as best as I understand it. And I want to actually go ahead and stop sharing. Well, actually, just for a second, and go to this next screen here. And because I'm going to direct this to your attention as far as how things work from a procedural standpoint, myself having responded to several situations involving domestic violence and having to decide how to go forth with it. So I pulled up the page itself, and I'm not sure if I can zoom in on that or what. But if you look at where my cursor is, she apparently sustained a visible injury to what appears to be, I think that might be switched around. I thought it was her right eye. But the bottom line is that she, during the course of a domestic violence situation, and given the relationship that they're in, it's considered that we're in a domestic relationship, right? So whether cohabitating or just in an intimate relationship, whether or not they have a child in common, what have you, boyfriend, girlfriend, right? So I don't have the account of exactly what happened, but apparently she posted something on social media that to depict the injuries that were possibly produced by Tyga. So what ended up happening is the likely I want to say that they responded or they did not. And, obviously it's a delicate situation. Only because, well, for one, it's domestic violence, and for two, it's dealing with somebody in the public eye. No pun intended. It's dealing with somebody that's a public figure, somebody that's in the recording industry, somebody that's in the entertainment industry, right? So, in essence, what ended up having to happen is that they really had to tread lightly about these things, having to deal with people that are, well, in the public space, in media, and I was just looking at a phone message here. But let me read basically. I'm actually going to read from a policy, actually a 61-page policy that actually was revamped since I left the agency I once worked for. It is the Domestic Violence Law Enforcement Protocol, and it's actually within a particular jurisdiction, and all those that are working within that jurisdiction are expected to follow these policies right here that are set out. It's got a bunch of signatures on it, and basically what it does is lays out, what actions are to be taken, and lays out, important definitions, 911 operator, dispatcher response, first responder duties, follow-up investigation, domestic violence, sexual assaults, victims' rights, stalking, children exposed to domestic violence, court orders, how to enforce court orders actually, or, carry out the process of those. Law enforcement officer or military involved in domestic violence procedures. It's a separate category for that. Well, not really a social category, but it's a way to go about it, right? Courtesy reports. What a courtesy report actually is, I'm going to see if I could open up this section right here and go over it. Yeah, okay, the definitions. Let me skip down just a little bit more. I was on the table of contents here. All right, courtesy report. Well, courtesy reports usually take place when it's an outside jurisdiction involved. Like, let's say, for example, this is something that actually happened to me. It was I responded to a call, a domestic violence, and it turned out to be actual crime as a result of it. It wasn't one of those things where you just take the report, but it was one of those where you actually had to work it up and actually because there was evidence on that case, because there was presence of physical injury, and it was obvious that it was likely produced during the course of a domestic violence incident that became physical, right? And there are elements associated with that, coupled with the injuries present, also determining who the dominant aggressor is in a given situation. And you also take into account physical stature. You also take into account, just basically on statements, right? If you respond to things like this. Now, apparently, what I understand is what happened is the girlfriend in this case involving Tyga wasn't wanted at the property. There was an argument that resulted, and police were not called there. He physically, I guess, got into the confrontation and ended up striking her. That's what it seems to have happened here in this case. But let me see what this report has to say further. That's the marks, obvious marks on her face. So the case has been, out there now on social media. It's out in public. It's brought out in public. And likely those photographs are going to be taken into evidence. Okay, I suppose that's that little ditty right there. So yes, arrested for felony domestic violence, right? Let's pull up the section code. 273.5A, any person who willfully inflicts corporal injury resulting in a traumatic condition upon a victim described in subdivision B, small letter B, is guilty of a felony and upon conviction thereof shall be punished by imprisonment in the state prison for 2, 3, or 4 years, or in a county jail for not more than 1 year, or by a fine up to $6,000, or by both that fine and imprisonment. Goes on to say subsection B says subdivision A shall apply if the victim is or was one or more of the following. Subsection to the subsection. Number 1 is the offender's spouse or former spouse, the offender's cohabitant or former cohabitant, the offender's fiance or fiancee, or someone with whom the offender has or previously had an engagement or dating relationship as defined in paragraph 10 of subdivision F of section 243. The mother or father of the offender's child, which is parasection 4. C below that is holding oneself out to be the spouse of the person with whom one is cohabitating is not necessary to constitute cohabitation as the term is used in this section. D, as used in this section, quote unquote, traumatic condition means a condition of the body such as a wound or external or internal injury, including but not limited to injury as a result of strangulation, suffocation, whether of a minor or serious nature. Okay, I'm going to read that again for emphasis. Whether of a minor or serious nature caused by a physical force. For purposes of this section, quote unquote, strangulation and suffocation, quote unquote, include impeding the normal breathing or circulation, rather impeding the normal breathing or circulation of the blood of a person by applying pressure on the throat or the neck. For the purposes of this section, section E, a person shall be considered, and 273, by the way, a person shall be considered the father or mother of another person's child if the alleged male parent is presumed the natural father under sections 7611 and 7612 of the Family Code. So you're able to incorporate other sections with this depending on the present elements that are the prevalent elements at the time. So for F, actually, parentheses F, parentheses 1, any person convicted of violating this section for acts occurring within 7 years of a previous conviction under subdivision A or subdivision D of section 243 or section 243.4, 244, 244.5, or 245 shall be punished by imprisonment in the county jail for not more than 1 year, or by imprisonment in the state prison for 2, 4, or 5 years, or by imprisonment and fine of up to $10,000. Let's see. I don't think I need to read the rest of this. I'm getting kind of lazy, but you get the point. You get the point that I'm trying to say here is he's in a little bit of hot water. But this was Hollywood Division. And what's the major industry in Hollywood? They're going to just basically move money around. We're going to see some, character assassination being applied, character references being applied here and there, and that. So I'm reading directly from League Leg Info Legislature California, from the California Legislature page, basically, and it spells out uh, everything here, all the elements and such. So that is effective January 1, 2017. And uh, the policy of the department policy that I saw, not LAPD's, by the way. This didn't happen it happened in LAPD's jurisdiction because he turned himself in at Hollywood Station, which is the area that apparently where the situation took place. So he turned himself into Hollywood Division and posted $50,000 bail. It's basically how it works. That's basically how it works. And this is a situation where it's a crime against a person. So what kind of timing are we talking about here when this is Domestic Violence Awareness Month? It's never a good time to engage in such behavior, such activity. It's always best to walk away. Reason why I know, well, this here is a picture back when I was about, I think 5, maybe 4. And this was the same night. And I believe this picture, my photograph might have been taken either before or maybe even after the day after that I had witnessed an instance of domestic violence in the household, in my home, where we're living at the time, which was a normal pattern that I actually got accustomed to in a way, because I had to adjust to it. I had to deal with it. And years later, responded to a domestic incident that ended in a pursuit involving the father of this child. Essentially, baby's mama drama, if you would. And my point in showing this is that we need to avoid these situations if we can. And it goes on both ends. I'm talking about both sides of this. It goes for both, each of us that are involved or may become involved in a dispute. It's always best to walk away if you can. If you can. If you're able to walk away, it's always best to do that. Give yourself a time to pause. There's a cause to pause. Step away. If you can. Get away if you can. I know from firsthand experience about getting away from a situation that was just toxic. My mother did that in 1973. She left the situation. And contrary to popular belief, contrary to what people may say about those who were exposed to instances of domestic violence, it's not by default that you automatically become an offender yourself. I know that's not true. It's not always the case with everybody that's witnessed it or has been exposed to it. Here we go. That's what I was looking for. Pause for the cause, ladies and gentlemen. Pause for the cause. Man. bolster your immune system, help alleviate stress. Take in those minerals and vitamins that you really need, nutrients like vitamin B, omega fatty acids 3, 6, and 9, and many more nutrients. More Beauty now offers hemp seed oil. We all know that health is wealth. We must do all we can to maintain it. More Beauty offers 100% hemp seed oil, a natural option. Hemp seed oil, available from More Beauty. Order yours today from the embassyofthemoors.org. The embassyofthemoors.org. Yeah, I really don't know how long I'm going to be today. I'm not going to do one of those marathon shows. I just wanted to just tap in on here on something that was on my mind, and that being Domestic Violence Month. So pretty much throughout the month, throughout these remaining days in the month, it's very likely you'll see this graphic again, because I want to do my part to try to remind people that these are situations that need to be avoided, especially those of us out here living in, you know, somewhat communal settings, really living in these apartment communities. Just understand that, you know, certain things can happen and people can observe things, and then before you know it, the police are at your door, right? As a matter of fact, more directly, we had some neighbors here years ago that, and I had no idea really that there was a pattern of domestic violence occurring right beneath us. I mean, right within this building, nearby. So, you know, just stay alert and be aware. And it's not, you know, if you happen to be in a domestic violence situation and you need help, reach out to somebody, reach out to someone, and see what you can do to get yourself out of the situation. Get out of the situation if you can. You can be low key about it. I mean, you know, you don't have to put up with that. You don't have to put up with physical violence in your life at all. There's no way to excuse it. There's no excuse for a man hitting a woman. There's no reason for it to become physical. And I think it's a pattern of learned behavior. It's a pattern and condition that unfortunately has existed within our people. And it's existed throughout one's ancestry. It's existed within mine. But we have the resources today, at least I like to think that we do. We have the resources and the abilities now to avoid these problems. But just like I was speaking about earlier about the the young rapper, the young man in the entertainment industry that appears to be, I won't even say of means, but to at least, you know, have a little bit of money, have a little bit of stature, and they still get caught up in a domestic violence incident. A physical. That was physical. This was not an incident report. This was a physical incident that got physical. And now they're facing a likelihood of a felony. You know, they may even get reduced because, you know, the resources are likely there, because we all know who runs Hollywood. No, I don't like. Let's see. So if I'm able to convince people out there, those of you out there, try not to get involved in these things. You cannot necessarily blame the practitioners of law enforcement if they show up to your door and conduct such an inquiry. That's why, you know, I live in an environment where, you know, I mostly remain quiet and stuff. And I you know, I've been married for quite some time, and we've had our ups and downs. But I've tried personally within myself to ensure that things don't get out of hand, that things don't get out of control. So we need to help each other in this, man, because You know, these types of situations are what can get us in the most trouble. It can introduce problems, new problems to your life. There's a lot of those that I've come across within my career time that have got caught up in the mix like that. They're serving prison time behind domestic violence situations. So it's important to maintain self-control. It's important to look towards being your best self and ensuring that these things don't happen. It's just best for the outcome overall. We have to understand that we were conditioned this way. Some of us that understand who we are, that we were conditioned in such manners, because when you think about it, that's evidence of there's more evidence of post-traumatic slavery syndrome, really, because we those of us in the Black community, think about how we grew up being disciplined through corporal punishment. I mean, I'm not going to break down the etymology of the word corporal, but where do you think corporal punishment came from? Where do you think resolving your problems through physical violence came from? Exactly. We need to return to who we are, the nature of our being. The nature of who we are is being of peace. It's not being physical. It's not being offensive. It's not being agitated to the point of attacking ones you love. We need to work those things through to make things better overall for future generations, even. Because like I said earlier, it depends. I knew that being exposed to it, that of course it was a bad thing, because I saw my mother getting hurt. I saw the violent nature of a man, that he wasn't my father. It was a man that we wound up living with. So I was able to put that in a box, if you will, file that away, and come to the realization that this man was not my natural father. But that didn't make me accept the abuse that he subjected my mother to. My earliest recollection being 4, maybe 5 years old. And she endured it for a couple of years after that, until one day, out of the blue, out of nowhere, when I was supposed to be headed to school. She was preparing me for school one morning, I believe. And instead of going to school, we went way on the other side of town, to never come back to where we had lived before, where she endured repeat patterns of domestic violence, beatings, and such. I saw that at a very young age. Very young age. So I'm here to tell you that you can make it. You can get out of a domestic violence situation. If you're being mentally abused, physically abused, you just have to seek the help. And then there needs to be follow through, of course. And you cannot necessarily rely on the system to fully protect you either. I mean, I'm no expert, but I'm telling you, I'm expert in certain things as far as response to these types of situations. And I can tell you, a piece of paper is not necessarily going to allow you a lot of protection, as much protection as you think. It's just an instrument for the purposes of being reactionary. Basically, the first thing you need to do is get yourself physically safe and distance yourself, if at all possible. Family, friends, leave the situation if you can, at any way, shape, or form. Do that. Get yourself safe. And then go through the process that's offered to you, basically for the reasons of maintaining yourself and your status in law. Because I've seen oftentimes, even with the court order or protective order being in effect, that it's not even enforceable, because, well, you have the person that's the purported victim or the previously reported victim violating the court order. And the very system that you are expecting to render aid to you, you've totally taken that away. Because you also have to follow the stipulations, what's stipulated on the court order as well. I'm just saying this from prior experience. But I don't want to go too far down that road. I don't, I'm already in enough rabbit holes as it is. But think of someone right now that's experiencing such situations for themselves, and see how you can be the most help to them and direct them to some assistance at some point. Because you might be saving a life. You might be saving someone's life, at least in the long run, if not immediately, or vice versa. It's something that we need to think about. It happens through all walks of life, especially right now, where we're facing such upheaval in the broader sense in society. We have people losing their jobs. We have people that are being evicted. They're facing all kinds of stressors that were totally unexpected. People are feeling pressured. People are feeling unworthy. People are feeling helpless. So take care of those around you. Be cognizant of what someone else might be going through right now, today. Been showing up to discussion rooms lately, people that are in the business world. I think there was a brother talking on. I think he's involved with the import export business, import export side of things, shipping, logistics, etc. And there was mention made about how a lot of things, they're running out of a lot of things. A lot of goods are leaving, or they're not really refilling store shelves. And looking at the calendar, this is October. We're about to go into what's commonly known as the holiday season, the gift giving season, the shopping season. Even under ordinary circumstances, households are stressed during this time of year. So domestic violence is indeed something to think about, because people are going through it right now. They really are. So something to pay attention to, perhaps, maybe. And focus on getting yourself some help whenever you need to. Maybe talk to friends or talk to people about what you're going through. Hopefully you'll feel better. because of it. Let's see. Let me see here. So I just briefly touched on what's going on since it was the most current event. I just wanted to touch on that and kind of go over some average protocol, kind of skimming over it, right? And this is basically in the mind's eye of someone that has to respond and handle an instance involving domestic violence, right? And this is consistent throughout the country, the way that policies are set up, whether or not you believe in them or not. It's just what I want for people to consider is the standpoint of those that have to respond to such situations. This is a lot part of, if not all of what they're thinking about, right? So according to the protocol policy statement, and it's consistent with a number of our agencies in California where I once worked, the California state legislature has declared that spousal abusers present a danger and present danger to the mental and physical well-being of the citizens of the state of California. That's according to Penal Code 273.8. Also goes on to say a substantial body of research demonstrates a strong connection between domestic violence and child abuse. So you could rest assured that, well, that'll open up a whole, they'll be there to inquire about the presence of any behaviors that would lead to a child abuse event. It'll be documented accordingly as well. All law enforcement agencies shall respond to acts of domestic violence as a crime. All law enforcement agencies shall respond to acts of domestic violence as a crime. So it's nothing that can be swept under the rug because, well, there's been past precedent where there was a loss of life that had resulted for as a result of actions not being taken. Victims of domestic violence shall be treated with respect and dignity and shall be given appropriate assistance by law enforcement personnel responding to an incident of domestic violence, regardless of their sexual orientation, gender conformity, age, or immigration status. The decision to prosecute a batterer lies within the discretion of the district attorney's office. Victims do not, quote unquote, press charges, drop charges, or prosecute their batterers. Written policies shall be developed which should encourage the arrest of domestic violence offenders if there is probable cause to believe that an offense has been committed. Written policies shall require the arrest of an offender absent exigent circumstances if there is probable cause that a protective order has been violated. Footnote includes emergency protective orders, or EPOs, that's what as they're called, or DVRs, DVROs, which are domestic violence restraining orders, or family law restraining orders, and criminal protective procedures. When possible, a legally reasonable law enforcement should remove firearms from the scene of domestic violence incidents. You're calling attention to yourself when you're involved in a domestic violence situation, even if it's just an incident absent of any injury. At least in California, there will be searching and seizing guns. Just a fact. When reasonably possible, prosecutors should notify the court of if domestic violence defendants own or possess registered firearms. When reasonably possible, law enforcement should seek a gun violence restraining order if a person is determined to be a present danger to himself, herself, or otherwise, or another person by controlling, owning, purchasing, possessing, receiving, or otherwise having custody of a firearm. Even though this wasn't a domestic incident, I'm thinking about the Menendez brothers. Well, it was an incident of domestic violence, but it wasn't between a couple. They actually they murdered their parents, Beverly Hills. Children exposed to domestic violence shall be considered separately as victims in domestic violence incidents. Ongoing training will be provided to enhance law enforcement's response to domestic violence and children exposed to domestic violence. Domestic violence is complex. Victims should be empowered to make their own decisions about what they do immediately following a domestic violence incident. A lot of things aren't common sense, and it goes into definitions and such. These are legal definitions that are used to apply to these matters and situations. And it goes into different sections. So this is policy that's expected to be followed when you're within that construct, having to respond to any domestic violence event. So that's what's taking place, and it's been taken in. We're at the beginning stages of what's going on associated with the public figure, the recording artist, right? All right. Well, that's been my time. I want to extend a thanks. And as I always say, hopefully I'll see you sooner than later, because I'm going to keep posting up, and letting y'all know that I'm here. And, I'm just glad to be here with you today. Hopefully this will encourage further discussion. October being Domestic Violence Month is Awareness Month. So be aware and care about those around you who might be facing or dealing with bad times. All right. Thank you for joining me today.